Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Guide Collective Roundtable. This week, I'm virtually joining you from the Kairos Winery in Dalmatia, Croatia. As you can see behind me, it's a lovely day in Dalmatia, and hardly anyone's there. It's awesome. But I'm still actually in Slovenia. But hey, whatever. Let's have some fun. I think everyone knows everyone, but of course, as always, Sarah from Adventures with Sarah.
Buongiorno, everybody. I'm joining you today from the Cinque Terre, virtually, in celebration of the great Italian holiday this weekend, which is Ferragosto, which is their main beach holiday. So I'm pretending to be at the beach today.
And we have Trish. Where are you now exactly?
I'm levitating above Florence, as you can see here. There you go. The Duomo right there for you. I brought the sunset, gorgeous colors. Happy to do my part.
Reid, how are you from, how's India right now, I guess?
It's hot, as it always is hot in India. Obviously we've all gone to virtual screens behind us for the program, and I'm going to be every week putting up one of my favorite places from one of Imprint Tours destinations. This is Humayun's tomb in New Delhi. One of my favorite sort of off the beaten track things. While everybody's running around to see the Taj Mahal and the Red Fort, you can often enjoy Humayun's tomb all by yourself, as you see in this picture.
Cool. Well, hey, that kind of brings us into our first topic of not always, because I was thinking, oh, he's going to be at the Taj Mahal, but he's not. So, I was going to give a little story about something that happened to me maybe 10 years ago when someone said, oh, you travel in the Balkans, you know the Balkans really well. I got like a 14-day train trip. I'm just going to go from capital city to capital city. And I was like, well, like those, like most of the capital cities in the Balkans really that's not the best place to go. And like, why do you want to just go to capitals? Like, well, it's easy. And I got this rail pass and whatever. And it was 2 days in each place. And I was, and that was when I first started thinking like, oh, this country, that's not even the best city. This country, that's not even like the best site. So one thing I think all of us who have led tours and experienced travelers, we notice some people just kind of gravitate to capital cities. So like, hey, it's a capital city. If you buy a guidebook, guess what's the first thing? I think there's maybe one guidebook I have where the capital city isn't the first city in the book. I don't remember which one that is, but normally it is. It's always kind of the focus, like come to the capital first. So I thought like, hey, let's start a different idea. Let's pick our second city. Like what's the city? What's the city in one of these, in a country where it's like, hey, this doesn't get as much, it's not the capital. Maybe it doesn't even get as much publicity, but it's perhaps even better than the capital. So I'm going to go first with my pick here, and then we'll go around and get everyone's picks. I really was going to pick Poland at first because Warsaw, although it's very interesting, Krakow is so amazing. I mean, I think it's one of the best cities in Europe. You're like, oh, isn't this the capital? But it's not. But that would be too easy. So I'm going to go a little off route and go Bulgaria. The second city in Bulgaria is called Plovdiv. It's a city built on 7 hills like Rome and other cities. I believe it's the second or third oldest inhabited city in Europe. And last year it was the EU capital of culture. And it's a place that I know with my guests, it's like, oh, thanks for like pointing this out. Like, yeah, you can see Sofia for some museums and other things. But Plovdiv's like maybe an hour and 15 minutes from the Sofia airport. So hey, if you want to land, if you want to come into the country and not be like, get yourself in a really big city, go medium-sized city. Plovdiv's really amazing, has all this kind of 19th century wooden houses that were like built once Bulgaria got kind of a little bit free from the Ottomans or whatever. It's gorgeous. I mean, it's one of the most interesting cities I've been in Southeast Europe. And thankfully with EU capital of culture and other things like that, some of these places get a little bit more publicity these days. But when you're thinking, hey, I'm going to check out Bulgaria, it's like, okay, but Plovdiv is the place to go. Lots of day trips too. So that's another thing to consider, I think, also is just, the location. Some of these places, they have so many things around, like wineries in that area of Bulgaria. So anyway, Plovdiv's my pick for that would be my second city. Or if we move the capital, we'll move it to Plovdiv or something like that. Sarah, what do you have? What's one of those, like, not capitals, but like really an awesome city for you?
That's a really hard question, because when we think about second cities, I think that, of course, Italy is going to be my first choice of places to go. But what is the second city of Italy? You know, we don't really know what the second city of Italy is.
I think you have like 10 of them tied for second place or something.
Yeah, I mean, is Venice the second city? Is Florence? Is Milan? I mean, I'm not really keen on Milan. So I would probably go a little bit more microscopic, and I would say that I would go with Catania in Sicily, because Sicily is the main city everybody talks about is Palermo, and Palermo is really beautiful for sure. But the city that a lot of people don't realize is worth their time is Catania, and that is a city that is on the eastern side of Sicily, whereas Palermo's far to the west. And it's a little bit more of a gritty city. It's got a little bit more life to it. But what's so cool about the city is that it's all made of lava. The stones, the city's made, it's all black, because the city is actually made of Mount Etna, which is right up above it. So they've made all the buildings out of the lava stone that they had access to. And you have this incredible backdrop with Mount Etna behind you. And then you've got the seashore right in front of you. So within, an hour drive in any direction of Catania, you can be at the top of Mount Etna skiing. You can be on the beach if you want, getting a suntan. You can go and see all the elegant people in Taormina, or you can go visit the ancient Greek city of Syracuse. So I think it's a really wonderful home base and a really underrated city that if I were to buy a piece of property in Europe right now, it would be in Catania, because I think it's an incredibly underrated and very cool and up and coming city.
Well, and it's also well served by Ryanair and some of the other low cost airlines.
Yeah.
I have Slovenian friends that go down to Sicily, and that's where they fly into.
There actually are way more flights into Catania than there are into Palermo. And it's also because there's a lot more around Catania. Palermo's a little bit isolated, and it's hard to get anywhere from there. But yeah, Catania is the best place if you ever go into Sicily to fly into.
All right, cool. Trish, what do you got? What's that second city you want to cuddle up to and like go visit again?
Well, I'm a Francophile, and if I could be anywhere and where my soul is happiest is always Paris. But the other place that I love to go in Paris in terms of city is actually its third largest city, Lyon. So after Paris and Marseille, Lyon is the third largest city. And what I love about it, there are just too many things, right? So you've got the city feel, and yet you have village-like areas that feel really intimate. You've got these small streets. You have these things called traboules, which are passageways that go in between streets and through buildings. So you can have there's gated access, and they were used originally for merchants who would be carrying large bolts of silk, because the silk trade was huge there, weaving silk. And now you can access those as just part of access ways to get from one street to another. You can take tours doing that. Lyon is also situated right between where the Rhone and the Saône River converge. And so waterway access is really cool. Amazing bridges to cross. Everything is walkable, but if you need to, you can take their metro system. There's a funicular that takes you to the top of the hill. You've got great views over the city. You've got a Gallo-Roman museum with actual Roman ruins that you can visit with an Odeon and a little arena area. The museum situation there too. You've got all range of museums. If you are into film, and you know about the Lumiere brothers, who essentially were the ones who created this moving picture, you can visit their home and museum. If you want to go even more modern, you can go to the museum, the Confluence Museum, which is situated where the Rhone and the Saône meet. And it is a modern museum where you can learn about the history of man. You can have a lot of interactive, engaging tools that are great for adults, great for kids. So much going on there. And then on top of that, the food. If you are at all a foodie, Lyon is the place to go. And so there are a lot of different eateries that you can check out, but what they're known for are what are called bouchons. Bouchon is a little kind of mom and pop small eatery. Maybe you've got 10 tables top. And just the intimacy and the engagement that you get down there is a little bit more comfortable and accessible for some people. If Paris seems like it's too big, it's too much for you, Lyon is the place to go.
So if I show up in Leon with my zero French, like I really have zero French, am I going to be not shamed as much in the Leon restaurants or cafes as I would assume I would be in Paris?
Well, you know, and the thing with any place that you go, as long as you know your basic kind of greetings and hellos and please and thank you, if you show them that you are making that effort, and you can butcher the language, you know, you can bonjour, s'il vous plaît, and if you can mess it up, but the fact that you've tried, that opens a kabillion doors for you rather than, hi, I need this, or give me this. So always using your courteousness, that's going to get you much farther. But yeah, I think that there is a different level of engagement because Lyon is the third city, right? They're not getting as many tourists as Paris. So when you have fewer tourists to deal with, but the local merchants, the local vendors, the local restaurateurs, and the hoteliers, they want your business. So they engage with you in a different way. And it still has a touristic kind of feel to it. And so of course they're going to get it in English. You know, you don't have to try to fumble your way through the entire French language. They'll work with you.
Nice. Cool. All right. Well, that. I saw someone maybe about a year ago. I saw someone who was doing food tours in Lyon, and I didn't know much about it. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's kind of like, I think a few years ago, I saw someone doing Puglia, something in Puglia, just wrote an article on food in Puglia, and I was like, oh, okay, I need to educate myself on that place. So thanks, Trish. Reid, I'm guessing maybe you'll take us to a second city that's not in Europe. I'm not sure.
Well, actually, my first impulse was Spain, and you know, I can name half a dozen places in Spain that I prefer over Madrid, and Barcelona is an easy choice for me because it's one of my favorite cities in the world. But yeah, I'm gonna keep with my India theme. And by the way, I forgot to introduce my India coffee mug today.
Nice.
Right, to go with Humayun's tomb in the background. Yeah, you know, Delhi has some amazing sites, including Humayun's tomb in the background here, but otherwise it is a nasty, ugly city in a lot of ways, and not at all representative of the richness of India. You know, India's second, third, and fourth cities are not much better, right, in terms of population. So I'm going to stretch our definition here, just go to the place that I would prefer to be if I only had one city to enjoy, well, whilst in India, and that's Udaipur. It's in southern Rajasthan. It's on this beautiful lake, Lake Pichola. There's a big abandoned palace up on the hill that was featured in a James Bond movie about 30 years ago. It was Louis Jourdan was the bad guy, and that was his lair, the Monsoon Palace.
I think Octopussy, maybe. I'm guessing
yeah,
Octopussy.
That's it. I didn't actually want to say the name on screen, but thank you.
My favorite James Bond movie. It's the best one.
Well, I tell you, for Indian locations, what it did for Indian tourism is amazing, and much of that of the scenes filmed in that movie Octopussy that are Indian are from Udaipur. So Louis Jourdan has the Monsoon Palace, as I said, which is an abandoned palace, but still it's just this picturesque palace up on a hill overlooking the lake. The city itself is beautiful with lovely palatial type houses lining the lakeshore. The city palace is featured in the movie as well. It's my favorite palace in all of India, and India is a country that you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a palace, right? They're absolutely everywhere, and I think the one in Udaipur is the best. It's the one we feature on the imprint tour of India. And then there's the floating palace. There's actually twin floating palaces that are built on tiny little islands out in the middle of the lake, and that was the female Bond villain who becomes the Bond ally in the movie. That's her refuge, is that floating palace, the Lake Palace Hotel out in the middle of the lake. And I'll just tell one little quick story and then I'll be done here. When I went to India the first time in 1993, someone had given me a gift of $100 to do something special while I was traveling. That person knew how frugal I am when I travel. And we chose to splurge with that $100 and spend one night in that Lake Palace Hotel, which, you know, 25 years ago, it only cost $100. It's probably $600 a night now. And that was one fantastic splurge, you know, one night to feel like a Maharaja there in India. So my choice for second city in India would absolutely be Udaipur in Rajasthan.
Nice. That's a great pick because I know nothing about it other than the Octopussy reference. I have some visions in my head of what it looked like. But yeah, I mean, there's so many there's so many places that, you know, even if you go to a country and say I'll spend 10 days here, you know, there's a bunch of cities that you're just not going to get in, especially with these with larger countries. And so I think there's a lot of good things to put on everyone's radar here that they could, and I think if everyone wants a little bit more, you know, you could go to the Guide Collective Facebook. And Sarah, what is the other Facebook site we have that kind of more interactive with talking with folks?
You're on mute, Sarah.
Sorry, my cat was being very noisy. So we have two social media presences for Guide Collective, which we have the page you guys are all watching right now, which is the Guide Collective Facebook page. But those of you who are watching, if you haven't joined yet, we have started the Guide Collective Travel Community, which is basically an open forum for whoever would like to discuss travel and connect with us as Guide Collective members. But we've also had our friends join. So people who are local guides in Rome, for example, Alessandra and Antonella, for example, are on there. My friend Michele in Sicily is on there. So if you have questions or comments, or you just want to talk about travel because, you know, it's fun to do that, please go ahead and join that. You just request to join it and I'll let you in. And just be nice, no politics. We're only talking about travel and inspiring each other there. So Guide Collective Travel Community, you can put that into your search bar on Facebook.
Cool. All right, let's get on to our next topic. It is summer, and let's face it, most of us are not traveling overseas, so we can fall back on that old American road trip. And Trish, I know you've had some little mini moons or mini honeymoons. So maybe you could tell us a few ideas, either places you've been, places, or some road trips that you like to do. Some ideas for road trips. I'm guessing California and Southern California have a lot of great opportunities for road trips there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have been doing the mini moons because we can't get anywhere really. So we've been kind of staying localized. There are a lot of great places that we can drive back roads and get some really cool views of San Diego County and go eastward and southward. But one trip that we did was a trip up to Santa Barbara. And I would say any California coastal trip that you want to do is a really great idea. Even nowadays, you can still get to a lot of different places where they're not too crowded. You can do small B&Bs. And even if you wanted to do hotels, you know, everybody is revamping their safety protocols. You have places that are, once you've checked out, that room stays vacant for 2 days before the next person is allowed to use that, or they're cleaning off everything and all of these different kinds of things. So you have a lot of options. But in terms of the places that you can go, staying in San Diego, you could do that. There are 50 million things that you could possibly do if you wanted to do water sports, you want to do hiking, you just wanted to get out and relax, you can do that here. But driving northward, you could head up to Ventura. There's a great botanical garden that you can visit out there. So obviously the beach area stuff that you could do. If you continue on and you want to go to Santa Barbara, like I mentioned, that's where we had stayed. Great little places that are right along the beach. Definitely those are going to be a little bit more costly, but going a few blocks away from the water, you can find really reasonable deals. Everything is walkable. State Street, as I mentioned in a previous roundtable that we had, they've shut down about 9 blocks of the major street called State Street so that all of those eateries could actually build new terrace spaces in what were parking spaces. And so now they've got wooden decks and people can be out there, can socially distance, and you don't have to worry about being indoors. So that's a great place to explore. Lots of really cool artisan shops, thrift shops, water activities, biking is great there. You can continue on and keep going northward if you want to head into Cambria, if you want to go to Monterey, and then of course finishing off in San Francisco. And taking a week to even just do, you know, a round trip. You can do a night or two in any one of those places. Los Gatos is a really great place to go. And if you want to go into Solvang, you want to get some kind of Danish flair going on, you can mix it up. You could pretend that you're in Europe for a hot second. And you can do all of that in California. And if you remember that California is roughly the size of Italy, the variety that we have, and I'm just talking about the coast, but if you headed inland, you could go into, you can drive all the way up the Interstate 5, and you can get some really cool, just off the beaten path, weird road stop kind of quirky little things that you want to do. If you want to go into our desert area, maybe summer, as we petered down away from that, you could still have that option and not be too sweltering. But the landscape that we have and the variety, there's just so much here that you can do.
Yes.
Thanks for the
Sarah,
shout out for my hometown, by the way. Like what you just described actually was such an incredible like blast from the past for me, just thinking about, because I'm from Ventura, and thinking about like Cambria. My mom took me there when we were a kid. We went to see Hearst Castle. You know, we went to Solvang all the time to get the sausage because we loved the sausage. And wow, that was just a really nice trip down memory lane. Thank you, Trish.
You are so welcome. And actually, that's an interesting thing to talk about too, is because we think about these kind of destination places and even as a road trip, but there are quirky little towns that you might not necessarily think to go as a vacation stop. But every city has got something that's interesting, even just to hang out and to get to know a place in a way that's different than how you're accustomed to traveling, right? Taking it slow, bringing it down, getting to know neighborhoods, getting to know the mom and pop kind of places, even if it's not a big name city. You could do that in any state. And I think that you'd find a lot of really great opportunities and experiences to engage with locals and to discover something that is different from where you live.
Cool. Yeah, I was going to say one of the best road trips I did that before I'd ever been to Europe, that kind of, I think, got me ready to go to Europe and do a big kind of driving trip, although I wouldn't recommend it in summer, is New Mexico. And New Mexico was all these little places where it's like, okay, you know, truth or consequences? Sure, you know, oh, there's some hot springs there at the hostel. You know, super, I'll stop there, and, you know, maybe you spend 2 days just because you could spend like a day and a half in the hot tubs and things like that. But that really kind of opened my mind, because then I kind of went there like with no itinerary, and that was the first time I had thought, oh, okay, I could just go somewhere, get a car, have all these places on the map, and just go around and drive.
I would say probably my favorite road trip that I've done in recent years was when I bought my new car, because I've never bought myself a brand new car in my whole life. And so about 3 years ago, I bought my Mazda, which is the nicest car I've ever owned. And it was one of those like liberation moments, because I walked myself into a dealership and handed them my Passat, which had died. And I don't think I've ever had such a charge in my life driving out in this gorgeous new car. And I was so excited about it that I decided to just scoop up my mom and my son. I threw them in the car and we just started driving. And I decided that I wanted to go down to San Francisco and just, you know, spend the day there, go to Napa Valley. I have some very happy memories of Napa Valley, and I thought it'd be fun to take my my mom down there. So we just got in the car and we kind of made it up as we went along. And the funniest thing, I wrote about that for my blog. Some of you might have read it. The funniest part was that Nico and I showed up, threw our backpacks in the car, little backpacks like this, for a week. And then we showed up to pick up my mom, who lives near Tacoma, and she had boxes of things. She had plates and napkins and coolers and like beach chairs and all of this stuff that she brought with us. And Nico and I were going, oh my gosh, what is she doing? But as it turned out, we basically used everything that she brought. So that was a lot of fun, spending a week in the car driving with Nico and my mom. And we visited my friend Katerina Moore in Ashland, who is a collaborator with Reid and I. So we had that was 3 years ago. That was a great time.
Nice. Reid, anything from around Colorado or out west? Or
Well, while Trish and Sarah were waxing poetic about California, I was thinking about my newish home state of Colorado. Not that it's a competition, but Colorado, I don't think I have to toot the horn for this state, with the Rockies here. And I live almost a stone's throw from the entrance to Rocky Mountain National Park. I love living up here in the mountains. Lots and lots to enjoy here. But actually what I really resonated with was what you were saying about New Mexico. right on the license plate, it says Land of Enchantment. And Santa Fe is one of those absolutely great artistic communities that has so much going on, something for everybody. There's all the pueblos, the Native American installations there. So, I mean, the last road trip I took was one that was forced upon me, where I had to drive to Phoenix to take care of my mother who'd broken her knee. So I drove south down from Colorado into New Mexico, across northern New Mexico and Arizona. And that's a stunning and beautiful drive. And it just so happens that Imprint has a tour of the American Southwest next summer, just in case anybody's interested to see it and never has. That's an easy way to do that.
I can't recommend New Mexico enough. And I've never been back. That was 23 years ago, but I would, that'd be a place where I'd put my kids when I do the American road trip, and put them in the car and say, let's do that. And also, hottest food I've ever had. I mean, I've had I love spicy Asian food, but I think some of the chilies in New Mexico is just like, blows your mind off. All right. Well, hey, let's.
Sorry, can I just ask you guys a quick question? Because we're talking about, Southwest United States, but all of us have either lived or continue to live in Washington State right now. So what about your road trips out east, going to Spokane or just heading east of the mountains anywhere?
It's a long way between here and anything once you pass about like Wenatchee. So it's all kind of like same for a really long time. But, recently, I think it was just last week, I decided to take the kids camping. And that actually is the best way that I've gotten to do road trips to parts of the state that I wouldn't think to go to. So we went down to the Columbia River Gorge, the Washington side, to Beacon Rock. And let me tell you, that is a stunning drive. And I've never done it. I've lived in Washington since 1989, and I've never done that drive on the Washington side along the gorge, the Columbia River. And we went and we looked at the Lewis and Clark monuments, and holy cow, I mean, everything looks like a painting. I just went and saw the Grand Canyon a few weeks ago, which was cool, but this was shockingly beautiful and not that much different. I mean, just in terms of like, wow, really impressive. So yeah, there's a lot of great things to see in Washington.
Yeah. I used to do road trips all the way from Southern California to Montana. So, and through Spokane to Seattle and back down again. So yeah, there's a lot to see. And then there's a lot of places we were like, oh my God, it was like, is the landscape ever going to change? So let's talk on something a little bit that's not as positive as the other things we've been talking about. Because if you haven't noticed, your US dollar is getting devalued right now, at least against the euro. I'm not sure how it is doing against other currencies, but it's not doing so well. But that's not the only thing that doesn't have the same value as it used to. Passports, obviously, with the situation right now, US passport, which is always top 10 in the world as far as where it gets you, is I don't know, it's definitely not bottom 10, but it's going down the Casey Kasem's chart from like the top 40 to like me, to like the hot 100.
Dating yourself, Andrew.
I was gonna say, is that a reference anybody here but us would get from Southern California?
Hey, if you grow up in Southern California and you don't listen to Casey Kasem, like, what the hell's wrong with you? But hey, yeah. So Reid, can you have any ideas on where U.S. citizens can travel? I'm not saying, hey, we should go travel or it's easy or anything like that, but at least kind of have an idea of where we can actually go these days.
Yeah. Well, I did a little bit of research this week, and I wanted to look and see all the destinations that Imprint Tours goes normally, what the prospects would be if I wanted to just go by myself. I certainly wouldn't take a group right now. But first of all, the American State Department has us on basically orange alert right now, level 3, which basically says we strongly suggest that you reconsider any international travel. Level 4 is the absolutely stay home, we're not going to let you go sort of thing. But level 3 is where we are for any international travel. So yeah, the prospects are not real strong. And I would say the one part of the world, if you just absolutely were jonesing to get out of the United States and needed that sort of different culture type of fix, pretty much the Caribbean seems to be wide open to us right now. There's plenty of caveats that go with that. Obviously, before you go anywhere, you need to find out specifically what's being required, because nobody is allowing Americans in without some sort of testing going on, either upon arrival, some sort of screening, which usually involves temperature and just a visual examination. But some places are requiring that you demonstrate that you've had a negative test, a negative COVID-19 test in the last 96 hours before arriving. Some countries will give you a test. Some countries are doing better than we are with testing. So when you arrive, they will administer a test that gets you an immediate turnaround. And then others will not necessarily require anything upon arrival, other than they will require you to self-quarantine for 14 days. So boy, check it out is the message here. But much of the world is an absolute closed door to Americans right now. I'm just gonna read through the list that I researched just to see for myself, right? South Africa, no. Botswana, no. Zambia, Zimbabwe, Namibia, no. You can travel to Namibia overland. You can't fly in as an American, but if you were in one of those neighboring countries, you could cross over, but they would issue you a test and quarantine you. Morocco, no. Jordan, no. Israel, no. India, no. Thailand requires a health declaration, which, by the way, that's going to remain in place forever. And more countries are going to be doing this, where you have to fill out a health form that can be checked by them.
And I think that's a great idea. I mean, might as well have that going forward, I'd say.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be a generic thing that they'll keep forever. And I'm seeing that all over the place as well. But otherwise, no, Americans are not allowed. Vietnam, no. But surprisingly, ironically, China will let us in.
Oh, well, I'll get my ticket tomorrow.
As long as you're ready to quarantine for 2 weeks and pass a test upon arrival. Peru, no. Japan, no. Guatemala, no. Chile, Argentina, no. Bali, no. There's your list, right? So the Caribbean is the short answer. Canada, and actually I didn't check on Canada, but Mexico will also.
No Canada.
No
Right,
Canada.
Mexico, not overland, but it's okay to fly in as long as you pass a temperature check and screening. Oh, Turkey would let you in with a positive test or a negative, whichever you want to look at it, and a screening. The Ukraine, United Arab Emirates, that's the short list, basically.
Yeah. We talked about in a couple episodes, we've talked about Croatia, which is still technically open, but with caveats because they're not in the Schengen zone. So like it's a little bit more, they're a little bit more freedom to do stuff like that.
Too. Sorry to interrupt. UK and Ireland, same sort of thing. As long as you're willing to quarantine, they'll let you in.
Yeah, so I mean, anywhere you're thinking of going, you've got either these very specific procedures. You have the prospect of a 7 or 14 day quarantine, which depending, like, hey, if you're kind of a digital nomad, you could show up and say, okay, well, I'll do 14 days here and then I'll spend another 2 months. But most people no, or you just have to be on your toes because things can change so rapidly. And I think Sarah might know something about this because she's day and a half, 2 days away from embarking on something that will probably show up on our roundtable next week to see how it all turns out, Sarah.
Well, let's see if that, at this point, I feel like all bets are off. So I had a ticket flying me in the direction of Europe, and my flight, I got a message yesterday, was canceled. So I had to kind of rewire everything. And in fact, actually the airline rewired everything. And, but it just was such a wonky sort of approach to getting where I need to go that it just, at first I looked at it and thought, oh my God. And then after I thought about it, I thought, okay, well, it's not ideal, but it is what it is. So basically I'm attempting to get into Europe, and I'll tell you that much about my destination. But the issue is I have an Irish passport, so I can get into Europe. That's fine. The problem is that when you try to get into Europe, you are going to be slapped with a quarantine basically everywhere you go. So this has been the problem. Andrew actually has been a big help on this. He's done a lot of research for me on all the different options and all the different, things that will happen when you arrive. But the problem is that it's not consistent, and we don't even know if it's consistent country to country. Andrew and I he's in Slovenia, and just the crossing into Slovenia, either from Croatia or Italy, we have no idea what we're going to find at the border. And it very well could be based on the person at the border. So the way I've decided to, you could probably talk more to that, Andrew, but boy, what a frustrating situation. So it's really a by the seat of my pants kind of thing. And honestly, with the amount of hurdles that I've had to jump to try and make this trip happen, I would not recommend this to anybody. Like, even if you have a European passport, just don't. It's not worth it, because it's an incredible amount of unexpected, things that I just don't know how they're going to turn out. It's too many question marks. So the idea should be that the destination I'm arriving at allows you to take a COVID test. Something interesting I found this week, though, is that I think in September, Amsterdam Airport is going to start allowing people to take COVID tests on arrival. So that's an interesting thing coming up, and that actually could change the game as far as what's going on. One of our very close girlfriends, Daniela, who's a member of the Guide Collective, she just got into the Emirates, which is also open to Americans, but the pile of paperwork she had to take, and she had to take tests for COVID several days in advance, multiple tests, present them when she arrived. You have to read her account of her trip, because it was a lot of work. So I would say, unless you have a very compelling reason to travel right now outside of the US or Canada, I probably wouldn't. Honestly, I'm not sure it's worth it.
Yeah, sounds like a nightmare. Reid, you want to jump back in?
Well, I was just going to summarize and almost use the same words that Sarah just did. In the research that I did this week, if you have a compelling reason to go, a lot of these countries will let you in, but it's always with those caveats. So I wanted to mention that, which Sarah mentioned right at the last minute. Yeah, unless you really have a compelling reason to go somewhere, it's just not a good time. There's too much uncertainty, and I just wanted to close for me with that. And if you do have to go somewhere, boy, pack your patience and be ready to be flexible, because it's going to be a changing landscape almost on a minute by minute basis.
Well, and the thing that I'm concerned about is what happens if I, get to my destination and then I can't get back. So, I'm okay, because I can go stay with Andrew. Get your spare room ready, baby. Yeah, and actually, that, I hate to tell you, Andrew, that is my backup plan. If I get slapped with
plan B.
I'm coming to your house for 2 weeks, but I have that luxury that I have friends in places that I know will take me in for 2 weeks or 2 months or whatever I need. But that, not a lot of people have that, and that can become a very expensive problem. So I just think it's important in this dialogue to say that it would be irresponsible of me and of us to recommend anybody doing this right now. I'm doing it because I have a reason, but I have to just lay out there for you that I would not recommend this to anybody right now, unless there's some really important thing you need to do for travel. I wouldn't do it as a vacation.
Yeah, and people in our
passport.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that? Yeah. I was going to say the other thing. Yeah, the other thing, even for those tuning in who are not in the U.S. or U.S. citizens or Europeans, especially Europeans in general, because Europeans are traveling more in Europe. If anyone's traveling in Europe, it's other Europeans. But the big it's like the problem's like twofold now. It's not just what do you have to do to get in. The bigger problem for Europeans is, when you're on vacation in country X, your home country has decided to put that country pull it off their green list. So when you get back, you got to do like 2 weeks quarantine. So that's like a double whammy, because you think you're okay. Oh, I've done everything. I've jumped through the hoops. Hey, we're all in the Schengen zone. We're all in the EU. It's all good. And then you're on the, if you're Finnish and you're sitting on the Adriatic in Croatia and you're like, boy, life is great. And then the Finnish government 2 days ago was like, okay, we're taking Croatia off that list. So, quarantine when you get back. Or some countries even do it like kind of saying, okay, well, if you're thinking of going, we'll loosen some things up, but everyone for countries X, Y, and Z that we don't want to, let's say, be friends with, then we're going to have these harsher quarantines regardless of the actual health status there. So yeah, I don't know. Obviously, I live in Slovenia. I see plenty of people from Germany, Austria. I could look at the cars, who's coming in our country. Most are heading down to Croatia. And I think probably that's the easiest thing to do. At least if you're in a car, you could always head back. If you're at the airport and waiting on flights or canceled flights or whatever, it would be a nightmare. So everyone cross their fingers that the next time you see Sarah and I will be doing a live broadcast from Slovenia or perhaps Italy, or like right on the border. Like I'll be on the Slovenian border and Sarah, you'll be on the Italian border because the border guard's kind of an ass, and we'll just like kind of like, go back and forth from from the border area or something like that.
It might just be you and me alone next week, Trish.
We got lots to talk about.
You're like, let's go to the live webcam of Andrew and Sarah in some jail, because we violated something or whatever.
Sadly, that is not so far from my life this year. So
No,
that could be
let's
true.
not jinx it. God, don't put that out in the universe.
Okay. Moving on. Let's talk about
Okay, all right, let's talk about something else. Okay, well, I'm actually going to kind of wrap up with something that I thought of today because I was thinking of air travel, and I to be honest, I haven't traveled on airline for about a year, certainly, and I haven't traveled long distance across the ocean for quite some time. And to be honest, I don't even know anymore with the U.S. airlines how things are there. But one thing I always thought when I went to go travel in the U.S. was, God, the food sucks, and of course now you have to pay for it. What do I want to bring on board the airplane? So when I used to go visit my family down in San Diego, it was obvious. You go to the taco shop and you get all those wonderful things. So I'd always have like burrito and 2 like salsa jars, and I would be looking at everyone else with their little like microwave pasta or microwave chicken dish and be like why bother? Just bring your own food. So thought I'd check in with everyone. Do you guys still bring food on the airplanes? Can you? What do you like to bring up? What do you like to bring on on flights nowadays?
I bring food wherever I go. That's just
okay. Yes.
life.
That's Trish.
Am I going to go to the bank?
Feaster.
Yeah, I need to bring.
Follow her on Instagram, the Movable Feaster.
Check that out. Gosh, I bring all kinds of stuff. I tend to bring protein things, so I will bring a little bit of beef jerky, especially on like long haul flights, but even if you're just going a couple hours or something. Almonds, I always do that because you can just eat a handful of those. And then I do need my sweets, so I'll put some kind of chocolate or candy in my little bag, or fruit. I love sliced apples, and then like a little thing of almond butter. It's all portable, small, fills me up.
Yep. And no issues with bringing food on.
No, not
Okay.
in terms of those things. I mean, as long as you're keeping to the size requirements, especially if it's liquid-ish. So it doesn't have to just be that it's liquid, but if I were bringing my almond butter, because it is that kind of oozy goozy kind of thing, if it's in something that's larger than 3 ounces, they kind of look at you shifty-eyed and say, no, it's almond butter, we're okay. But they don't like it.
I tend to bring trail mix with me. And the funniest thing is I've always brought trail mix with me from the time I was a backpacker in the 90s, because, it's a good sort of self-contained snack. The funniest thing is that my bus drivers that I work with that are usually Belgians, they have been fascinated with it. Anytime I break out the gorp on the bus and I'm just snacking, every single one of them was like, what is that? And it didn't occur to me, they don't have anything like that in Europe. You can't get gorp outside of the United States. And maybe it's just a Washington or West Coast thing. I'm not really sure. American thing, but I usually bring some kind of mix like that. Right now, because my kids and I are trying to follow the keto diet to shed our quarantine weight, I have packed for this trip almonds, and I've brought some nutritional bars that are specific to that kind of a diet. And I always bring stuff like that. At least I have meal replacement bars always on every trip. And I always have, just because sometimes you get stuck and you don't know what's going to happen. I will say SeaTac Airport, at least in the past, not right now, but in the past, has magnificent restaurants with takeaway. And that became kind of one of my processes as part of my boarding of a plane, was I'd stop into one of the restaurants there and get takeaway. They had great salads. And then everybody on the plane looks at you with big jealous eyes. Where did you get that salad? So that's what I do.
Reid?
Well, I'm afraid I'm a little bit boring. First of all, I think I'm the least foodie amongst the panel here today. I remember one time a few years ago making some passing comment within earshot of Trish about not really feeling strongly about where is the best gelato in Italy, and I think I really saw steam come out of her ears at that moment. So I'm a little boring. I'm gluten free. That's always my issue, and I refuse to order a gluten free meal even on an international flight where they're serving it because they're so awful. So I always I'm taking something sort of like Trish said, usually high protein stuff, meat, cheese roll up, something like that. A cut up apple with some peanut butter, something easy like that. So I'm much more utilitarian about these sort of things. I will comment though that in still in large parts of the world, and maybe there's a correlation with developing world, they still always give you something to eat on the flights. You know, even if it's a nasty little sandwich thing. So I always get tripped up by that because I'm now conditioned to think about not being fed on a plane, apart from the, transcontinental flights.
Yeah, I think Turkish Airlines, every time I fly them, which is, like just a 2-hour flight, if that, I always get some kind of like doner kebab rice thing. I'm just like, hey, like this is better than probably most of the kebab stuff I would buy wherever I'm, like in the cities I normally go to. So that's a nice surprise. And it seems like it's kind of fresh. I mean, obviously it's whatever, microwaved or what have you, but it's like, okay, it's not like totally ridiculous like those kind of like chicken cheese macaroni things that I remember from like United and
what could be an
American.
interesting topic sometime is to talk about the weirdest airplane food we've had, because you've noticed that small local airlines always try to feed you like their local thing. It's not like American Airlines always it's always cannelloni or chicken, but when you fly on other airlines, I love how when you fly to Asia, they have the white people menu, and then they have the locals menu. And I always get the locals menu over the white people menu. I love on Korean Air, they have bibimbap, which is just a genius thing to serve on a plane because it's actually good. And my other favorite one that I ever had was on Air Canada. When I woke up about to land, they served pancakes with maple syrup, real Canadian maple syrup, which I thought was adorable.
That's good. One thing that I stopped doing probably 10 years ago, I'm curious if other people still, do you guys drink alcohol on flights? I mean, even when Air France was still running Seattle to Paris, and they would give you as much as you wanted, I was like, you know what? It affects me so terrible that I just stopped, like, anything, even coffee kind of dehydrates me, and I stopped drinking anything other than pretty much water on flights. So you guys do that, or find you get dehydrated drinking
I'm
alcohol?
the same way. I get totally dehydrated, and especially, most of us, we're usually traveling to work. And so I can't have that kind of hangover, dehydrated, jet lag combination if I need to hit the ground running and working. So no, I stay pretty clean with the water.
Reid, I know you're
Keep the wine glass full till we land.
Yeah, I'm kind of in Reid's boat. I like to go in, at least when they come around with the cocktail cart at the very beginning of the flight, when I'm doing a transcontinental one, I'll always have a nice stiff gin and tonic, because usually, so I have a pattern. I get on the plane, I have my gin and tonic, and then when they come around with dinner, I have my glass of wine, and 2 drinks is enough to pretty much make me fall asleep. So that's always the pattern, is I do that, and then I usually end up falling asleep. Actually, these days after I drink the gin and tonic, I'm usually out and I skip dinner, but that's okay too. So, I know some people take Valium or Ambien or something like that on a plane, and this is just my slightly less toxic way of doing the same thing. I'm 6'2", man. It's hard to sleep on a plane.
Are you 6'2"? I thought you were 6 feet.
No, honey, I'm 6'2", and I'm actually 6'2" without shoes on. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, I'm a big girl. So getting on a plane is so miserable for me usually, and my knees are usually jammed into the seat in front of me because I'm all legs. Like, I actually have a short waist, so there is literally no leg room for me on planes. And so for me, drinking is kind of required. Otherwise, I would be so freaking miserable for 10 hours. So at least it just knocks me out. So I get my pillow. I have my process. I bring my down pillow. I sit on the window side. I have sometimes a double gin and tonic, and then I just and I'm out. And then I don't notice if somebody is crashing into my knees constantly.
Okay, so here's a fun topic then. What are your airplane issues, right? So you have the tall leg issue thing going on, but I'm short. So Sarah's 6'2", I'm 5'1", barely. But that means that my feet actually don't touch the ground when I'm sitting on an airplane seat. And that's really uncomfortable and it hurts my back because they just dangle and they pull on me weird. So I have to, I don't put my work bag up above. I have to keep it down below because that's my footrest. That's the only thing that gives me enough stability and, you know, so I can just sit properly. And
They have
not have my
slings
back
too
on
you
it.
can buy. You can buy a foot sling that attaches to your chair. Have you seen those?
I saw those.
Yeah.
Those. Has anybody tried
Totally.
those? Somebody give some feedback. Want to
I
know?
don't know, we got to write an article about
Average
short people.
size.
Reid?
One size fits all.
Yeah. Well, I have how about this? I have a great idea. I've had a great idea for over 5 years about a kind of like travel in pods on airplanes, which now would really come in handy because that would totally solve the whole like worrying about getting COVID. So if you want it as a topic sometime, or you'd like me to go on our Guide Collective Facebook and talk about it, if you're watching the program, say, Andrew, just put in the, Andrew, what's this whole pod idea? It's fantastic. I usually end up telling my guests every tour, like, because we complain about flights and stuff, especially if you come from Australia where it's 24 hours. And it's like, hey, yeah, let's do this. Let's do the sleeping capsule pods in the plane, and we could skip the crap food. We could skip the paranoia about the plane itself and the leg room and the this and the that. So I will, if enough people want to know about it, I'll give you my pod idea, and who knows, maybe we could actually sell it to the airlines at this point, because I think people would actually want to use it. So I'll end on the, like, if you would like to know more about Andrew's pod idea, please put something in Facebook. I'll gladly talk about it. Okay. So I will be back next week. I'm not exactly sure what the lineup's going to be. Perhaps Sarah and I will be both doing it together from Europe. But same bat channel, same bat time, I guess. Until then, any last words from the host here?
Please say a prayer to the angel and or saint and or God of your choice that I make it to my destination and I don't get slapped with a quarantine. So if I could have all of our fans out there watching saying a little prayer for me on Saturday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon Pacific time, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sarah, I'm not sure if everybody who's tuning in is seeing what I see on the screen here, but has anybody commented about my green electric hair on this?
They have, yes. Yeah.
Because I look like an alien the way my hair keeps vibrating on my head with the virtual background here.
I think it makes you look rockin', Reid.
Yeah, it is. It is a good look, and all the kids will be doing it next year.
Totally.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little Green Day or something. Trish, any last thoughts before we go?
Shout out to two Barbaras who are commenting on our little feed here with the videos about the almonds, because I don't know if you guys are from the Seattle area, but those of you who are, the best almonds are at PCC. They're Marcona almonds with the sea salt and a little bit of sunflower oil. Fantastic. Take that on a flight. And then if you're in San Diego, the real food that you should have on your flight is a carne asada burrito. Bring it. You'll be happy.
I agree.
Well, by the way,
one.
Barbara Bunetta told me that the best way to sneak me into Slovenia is to have that guy who gave the tour of the World War I tunnels get me in.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because I'm sure there's the whole tunnels. They're going from Italy to Slovenia anyway. So I'll give him a call this weekend, Sarah. We'll see. I'm guessing a case of smokes, and he'll probably transport whoever needs to be transported.
Totally, yeah.
Hey, Trader Joe's has those almonds as well, by the way, for people who don't have access to.
But yeah,
Trader
Barbara
Joe's
just
open.
mentioned that too.
Yeah. Hopefully someday Trader Joe's in Europe. That would be on my Christmas wish list, I think. All right, everyone. I think we're out of time, so let's say goodbye. Thanks for tuning in, and join us next week. Until then, have fun storming the castle.
Andiamo.
Journey well.
Content.
Ciao.